Confirmed. Red Bull have officially made the much talked about decision to drop Liam Lawson out of that second Red Bull seat and instead call up Yuki Tsunoda, who will finally get the drive he's been after for about 4 or 5 years, really, and been desperate to get into that Red Bull. And he will get the opportunity after Red Bull have officially confirmed that from Japan, Yuki Tsunoda will officially be Max Verstappen's teammate, and he will debut in the Red Bull in his home race. So it's a nice little PR spin with regards to that from a Red Bull perspective, but it's an absolute PR disaster everywhere else. Is this Liam Lawson's fault? Is this a Red Bull issue? And personally, I sort of tend to lean towards the latter. And we're going to go to sort of talk a little about the treatment of Liam Lawson before we then go into the treatment and the idea of Yuki Tsunoda and whether it's the right decision. Red Bull are currently basically going through second drivers like it's going out of business. You know, we've seen so many drivers team up with Max Verstappen and they've just not been able to keep up. And unfortunately, it worked to a certain degree when they were still scoring points and likes of that. But recently, we've seen drivers in that second Red Bull that just can't score points and they can't contribute to the World Championship sort of mission. And I mean, right now, all 35 points that Red Bull have in the World Championship have come from Max Verstappen, and they will be desperate for Yuki Tsunoda to start chipping in. So in terms of exactly what was said, and very interesting to see what the reaction is going to be, because I think this is a huge mistake from Red Bull, even if it is rectifying one they made last year in terms of Yuki Tsunoda probably being more deserving of the drive than Liam Lawson in the first place. I think that to have backed Liam Lawson like this and then to bin him after 2 races is a really bad look. And I think, you know, you look at the decisions that they've made, and we look at the quote coming from Christian Horner, which is an absolute load of rubbish, and I think it really backs it up. So this is the part of the quote I really want to focus on. And he said, "We have a duty of care to protect and develop Liam, and together we see that after such a difficult start, it makes sense to act quickly so Liam can gain experience as he continues his F1 career with Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, an environment and team he knows very well." How dare you basically come out and say you've got a duty of care to these drivers when you consistently bin them and you don't give them any support? You know, we've heard them from the drivers themselves basically saying they're really struggling with the car. And Red Bull basically just don't care as long as Max Verstappen is winning. And the only time they really started to care is when things got so bad after years of neglection that they started costing points. They didn't care about the issues that Checo Perez is having in the car, or the issue that Liam Lawson might be having in the car when they were coming sort of 4th and 5th, and they were adding, you know, when Max Verstappen's winning every single race and your second driver is coming 5th and 6th and 4th and maybe a podium here and there, they're collecting so many points that they don't have to worry about the World Championship. All of a sudden, last season we saw a McLaren, which was faster than Red Bull, that started winning races, started getting 1-2s, and all of a sudden Max Verstappen was not enough to be able to win the World Championship. And then they've suddenly realized the importance of the second driver, but by then it's been too late. You know, they've not given them the support they've needed. And once again, they've made a bold decision to go with Liam Lawson based on some of the races he had last year after he replaced Daniel Ricciardo, where he was looking very good. You know, and I mean, it was that pivotal race where he beat Sergio Perez, and he was faster than Perez in the Visa Cash App Racing Bull, and that was kind of the big decision. Well, if he's faster in the V-Carb, then he's going to be a lot faster in the Red Bull. And what they haven't sort of managed to do is basically been able to translate that pace from the V-Carb into the Red Bull, and Liam Lawson continues to struggle. This will decimate Liam Lawson. You know, yes, a lot of people are saying that he'll probably be very relieved to be out the firing line, but he now looks like the failure because he came in so ambitious. You know, he came in saying, I want to win, I want to do well. And now, for example, he's basically been given a chance, and after 2 races, said, no, actually not good enough, back you go. And he's literally been benched. This would not have happened in any other team because they don't have, you know, the 4 seats on the grid. And I think maybe it also calls into question whether they should be allowed to have the 4 seats and be allowed a situation where you can swap and, you know, make a change with these drivers so consistently. Now, yes, other teams have made changes throughout the years, and you've got reserve drivers and you've got sort of links, you know. I mean, for example, Ollie Behrman is very much in the sort of Ferrari swing of things, and, you know, Haas, and it kind of becomes a development side. You've seen the difference in collaboration between Williams, Mercedes, and stuff over the years and the likes of that. But no other team has 4 seats, you know, 4 pure seats where you can swap and change as they like. Now, in terms of the full statement from Christian Horner, he said, it's been difficult to see Liam struggle with the RB21 at the first 2 races, and as a result, we have collectively taken the decision to make an early switch. We came into the 2025 season with 2 ambitions: to retain the World Drivers' Championship and to reclaim the World Constructors title. And this is purely a sporting decision. We acknowledge there's a lot of work to be done with the RB21, and Yuki's experience will prove highly beneficial in helping to develop the current car. We welcome to the team, and we are looking forward to seeing him behind the wheel of the RB21. I mean, yes, from a sporting decision, a driver not getting points in the first, effectively 3 races is a disaster. But again, you're going to wonder, is it their fault? And what is it going to do to the driver? To talk about a development of care, this for me was a pretty damning part. So Max Verstappen has liked a post on Instagram which said the following. It said, I'm getting a bit tired of all the comments that F1 is the toughest sport in terms of performances, and when you're underdelivered, you've got to face the consequences. Yes, you've got to perform. Yes, the pressure is insane, but in my opinion, this comes closer to bullying or panic move than actual high athlete achievements. They made a decision, fully aware, gave Liam 2 races only to crush his spirit. Don't forget the dedication, hard work, and success Liam has put in his career so far to achieve the level where he is now. I remember my own blood, sweat, and tears, and that was to reach F1, let alone drive for an absolute top team. Yes, he underperformed the first 2 races, but if anyone's aware of that, it's himself. Perhaps he has suggested to this himself, but if not, I wish Liam all the strength and courage to get to the grid in Japan. Trust yourself, get your head up, and prove them wrong. And that's been liked by Max Verstappen, which is a pretty damning assessment of what's going on and what's gone on. And I think it's spot on. You can't say to someone that we back you and then remove them off the 2 races. Even now, Yuki Tsunoda will go into that Red Bull knowing that he's not going to get the backing. It could be a time. If Isaac Hadjar starts racing well, and maybe he gets the bloody Red Bull seat by the end of the season, because there's the history of that. And I thought this meme over here completely summed up the issues currently with the Red Bull side, and the Red Bull clips your wings, and I think it does. I really do think that it's a curse seat that nobody wants, because they don't have the support and the backing, true backing, that they need to perform. And you've seen, for example, McLaren doing so well because they gave two drivers really fast cars, and they're really performing. Red Bull are the only team in the last 18 months where there's been such a vast difference between the drivers and the cars. And it's not a driver's thing, it's a car thing. Not to say that the other car's slower, for example, but it's been set up wrongly for the second driver. And as a result, they can't get the pace, for example, that they need. And as a result, they're not getting the results that they want. So it's a really frustrating period. The big thing I think at the moment is that it's going to come down to Christian Horner having to be very honest with what's going on, and Red Bull themselves need to start looking at themselves in the mirror and start realizing that they're making lots of decisions and they need to try and make some changes. This I thought was absolutely phenomenal, basically summing up the situation. But more to the point, let's talk about Yuki Tsunoda. So he's come out and said that he's ready for the challenge. And, they asked about the fact, him competing with Max Verstappen. He came out and said, I'm ready to fight that monster, basically. And he said that he's ready to go and that standing on the podium in Suzuka would be the ultimate dream. Whether he'll be able to do it, I don't think so. I think that, again, I think we're going to see him struggle. In fact, I would wager that Liam Lawson will probably out-qualify him, to be perfectly honest, because he'll go back into that V car, which I think will be better suited to his driving. And, last year he had the pace. That's the big thing. You can talk about Liam Lawson not being good enough. Last year we saw that he had the pace and he had the ability to overtake and to get results. Then he was put in a car which didn't suit him and which he struggled with, and now he's been benched and gone back to the car where he was very, very quick. So very interesting to see what happens with these two. Now, the main thing from Red Bull, these two both need to score points next weekend. That's the big thing when it comes to the Japanese Grand Prix. Those two, they've got to both score points. Because at the moment, it's looking at this stage like Mercedes is genuinely the second fastest team. That's what Toto Wolff reckons. McLaren is the fastest by far. Ferrari are there and thereabouts if they can just get their bloody strategy and, their weight issue sorted. So Red Bull are very much within the top 4, but not necessarily first or even second in that top 4. And so when you've got Max Verstappen, who, being Max Verstappen, can get a second or a third, maybe he can even win next weekend due to him being the best driver on the grid. It doesn't really matter if Yuki Tsunoda is not going to finish in the points when you've got a McLaren 2 and 3, or Mercedes 3 and 4, Mercedes 2 and 4, for example, because the net gain is just too much for the other teams, and you're going to slowly slip behind. So it's a very, very interesting. It's just probably the biggest challenge that Red Bull have probably had since they got into racing. They dominated for years and years and years. And this is definitely the biggest challenge that Christian Horner currently has to try and negotiate. Is this the right decision? Let me know down in the comments below. Smash the like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.